Good morning, Patrick. Good morning, Kathy. Well, I know already the name of two people listening to my podcast. That's fantastic. If you want to communicate your name, please do. It makes me happy. I will try, sorry, I will try to talk a little bit less. Otherwise, I'm not quite sure you will keep on going with this podcast if I keep on talking. Today, what are we going to do in lesson 4? I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to introduce myself, or you are going to introduce yourselves. It's true, this is not a thing you really need very often to talk about yourself. Why do I put it in my podcast? Because you have the verbs to be and to have coming back all the time in French, in all languages, but they are quite difficult in French because they have all different forms. Je suis, tu es, il est, nous sommes, vous êtes, etc., etc. So that's why I'm doing this. Okay, so we are going to do that. And then at the end of this episode, I will try to explain another grammar point, which is the past tenses. We use two past tenses in French, but the past tenses are completely different in use from the English language. So, as I said already before, in English, when you talk about something you did, an action in the past, you will probably use the simple past. We went to the movies, we had an hamburger, and etc. In French, for that same situation, we use the past perfect. I have eaten, I have been, we have talked, etc. So that's the big difference. So I'm going to explain how you use it, and well, that's what I just did, but also how you make those two tenses. But first of all, we are going through the dialogue. I'm going to explain everything in English. I'm going to write it in red. You will find it in the document, link under here beneath. And then if you want to, you can only listen. So, dear Patrick, because I'm doing this specifically for Patrick, if you don't have much time, then only listen to the audios. Don't listen to everything I explain, but listen and listen again to the audios. That will help you also, and I know you're a quick learner, so I think you will get some benefit out of that. Good. So, what is Miss A asking? So, Patrick, what do you know about me? And the verb to know in French is two verbs, savoir and connaître. It is connaître, je connais, when it's something really specific, you know, a city. But here it's like, what do you know about me? So then we will use the verb savoir, and the conjugation will be c'est. So our sentence becomes, I will put everything in red when I finished this document. How do you say in French so? That's the word to use, and it's alors. I'm sure you've heard that word, Patrick. Alors means so. Alors, Patrick, what do you know about me? And if you remember it well from last time, to start a question with what, we can use this qu'est-ce que thing. If it was just a question, it was est-ce que. If it is what, you can use qu'est-ce que, and it's quite hard to write, but you don't have to bother about that for the moment. Qu'est-ce que you know, tu sais, c'est comes from the verb savoir. About me is de moi. Alors, Patrick, qu'est-ce que tu sais de moi? What do you know about me? And now you are going to say what you know about me. Well, alors, well, you can say alors, but if you want to say well, maybe it would be rather, eh ben, that's also a really French thing. Eh ben, you live on the linguistic border between Flanders and Wallonia. You live, and to live is habiter. I think you know the word probably habitat. So you live, tu habites on sur. And remember, linguistic border, we will say border linguistic. We turn it around. Adjective normally goes after the noun. And border is frontière, a bit like a frontier. Sur la frontière linguistique. That's easy. Between, entre, la Flandre et la Wallonie. And do you remember that in French, all the words need an article? Un, une, le, la, du, de la, des. Whereas in English, very often, you don't need any article. OK. Eh bien, tu habites sur la frontière linguistique entre la Flandre et la Wallonie. You live near a lake in the periphery of Brussels. Tu habites, and near in French is près de. It's like near of, près de. And then a lake is un lac. Now you see we have the E of de, and we have the U of un. The E goes away. I put this small apostrophe, and I write un. So, tu habites près d'un, link it, lac, in the periphery, dans la périphérie de, oula, am I writing there? Périphérie de Bruxelles. In Belgium, we say Bruxelles, and then the French people from France, they say Bruxelles. That's as you want, but Belgians say Bruxelles. Tu habites près d'un lac, dans la périphérie, there is no S, sure, de Bruxelles. You work in Brussels in communication. You work, to work is travailler. And watch out, this verb we call a false friend. Why? Because you would think that travailler is to travel. It's not. To travel is voyager. So travailler is to work. Tu travailles in Brussels. Well, if you have a city, you say à. À Bruxelles, à Londres, à Paris, à. If it's a city, you say à. À Bruxelles. In communication, dans la communication. Quite easy. I put one L too much. Okay, good. You have 2 children in college. You have the verb to have, avoir, a hard one because it changes in every person. So you have is tu as. With an S, you don't have to know that for the moment. Tu as 2. Watch out the sound at this. Watch out for the sound de. Really hard for English-speaking people. Tu as 2 enfants. And did you notice that I linked de to enfant? 2 enfants. In college, à l'université. A college in Belgium would be a secondary school. Tu as 2 enfants à l'université. You are Belgian. You are, that's again the verb être, really hard to be and to have, really hard. You are, tu es belge. It's Belgian. You went to school in the center of Brussels. And here, this is really hard. You went to, as I told you, in English, went, it's an action, but in French, we will then say, you have gone to school in the center of Brussels. We will use the past perfect. So, tu es allé, and I will explain that later. Tu es allé to school, à l'école, in the center, dans le centre of Brussels, de Bruxelles. Good. You are a good friend of my mother. Yes, I am. You are. Tu es une bonne ami. And you see that ami, friend, here it's a woman, because it's your mother, so it's a woman. Then we will use une and not un, une feminine. And we will say bonne and not bon. Bon masculine, bonne feminine. Everything is adapted. Tu es une bonne amie of my mother, de ma mère. And then I'm asking you, do I have pets? And this do you, do I, etc. Remember, it was the est-ce que thing. Hard to write, but you don't have to know how to write it, just est-ce que. Est-ce que, and then you have, tu as. Pets we call domestic animals. Est-ce que tu as des animaux domestiques? You see this des animaux. Why? Because in French, the noun substantive cannot be alone, shouldn't be alone. So, des animaux domestiques. And you say, yes, you have a cat. Something wrong with domestique? Yes. Did I write a mistake? Domestique. Ah, yes. Question mark. Yes, oui. You have a cat. Tu as un chat. Chat is cat. Do I live in an apartment? So again, this do I, do, does, est-ce que. Est-ce que I live, j'habite. Habiter starts with an H, but we don't say it. And then we link it to the je. I live, j'habite. Don't say je habite. Link it together, j'habite. Est-ce que j'habite dans un appartement? Do I live in an apartment? And you say non. It's a nasal sound. Non. You can squeeze your nose if necessary. So non. You, well, we don't have here a capital letter. Okay. You live in a house with a garden. Tu habites in a house, dans une maison, with, avec un jardin. And so you will see that in the meantime, you learn all the small words in, on, at, with. What do I like to eat? And now we have again the what, so then it's not est-ce que, but qu'est-ce que. So, qu'est-ce que I like? J'aime, it's je aime, the verb is aimer, but you link it together because aimer starts with a vowel, so j'aime to eat, manger. What do I like to eat? And then we have a very hard sentence. My mom says you loved Mexican when you came to the US. So my mom says, no. You can say ma mère, my mother. If now you want to say my mom, normally it's ma maman. I must say that in French, normally you would say mother and you will not say mom, but up to you to choose. So mom is ma maman says, dit, the verb to say is dire, okay? And then I know that in English, there is a tendency to leave out the that. So she says that. You don't have to say the that. But in French, you do. So you will say, ma maman dit que. Que is that. Que, you loved. You can say tu aimes. But if it's really you love a lot, you can say tu adores, to adore. So you can choose tu aimes or tu adores. Mexican. It's true. I loved Mexican food when I lived in the US. But in French, you will say Mexican kitchen. And I know you use the word sometimes too. I heard that you will also say cuisine. But so in French, you have to que tu aimes la cuisine mexicaine. Cuisine is feminine, so we say la and not le, la cuisine. And then we have an extra E at mexicaine, also feminine. Maman dit que tu aimes la cuisine mexicaine. Ah, but you loved. You loved. And this, it will be the simple past because it's not really an action, right? So, tu aimais. Don't worry about how to make it for the moment. Tu aimais la cuisine mexicaine when, quand you came to the US. Well, here to come, it could be simple past or it could be past perfect. You can choose here because to come, it's a bit in between the two. So, quand tu, I will take the past perfect. Quand tu es venu. And then to the US, it's really hard. You have to remember it as a sound. Aux États-Unis. Aux États-Unis. État is state, uni is united. Aux États-Unis. Link it all together. Ma maman dit que tu aimais la cuisine mexicaine quand tu es venu aux États-Unis. Good. Absolutely. Mexican is excellent in the US. I loved it. So absolutely, really easy in French. Absolument. Absolument. So we say la cuisine mexicaine is excellent. It's excellente. And you have to put an E at the end of excellent, which means that you pronounce the T. You don't pronounce this last E, but the E, since then the E is not the last sound, you have to pronounce the T. So, la cuisine mexicaine, pardon, est excellente aux États-Unis. I loved it. J'adorais. And the it, you don't have to say in French. You can just say, I loved, j'adorais. And what is my favorite drink? Et, so drink in French will be boisson, which is feminine. So if you say which, quelle, will also be feminine. It's only a difference in the written language, don't bother about it, but it's quelle, with two L's and an E. Et quelle est ma boisson, drink, préférée, like preferred. Quelle est ma boisson préférée? Coffee. And remember, in French, you cannot have just a noun all alone. Du café. You know me very well. You, tu, you know is tu connais. Because now you say you know me. It's something really specific. You know me. It's a specific person. Then you will use the verb connaître and not the verb savoir. So, tu connais, you know me. Me is also me in French, but you pronounce me. And you put it in front of the verb because it's a little word. Tu me connais very well. Très bien. And what about you, Patrick? But then you will say in French, and you, Patrick. Et toi, Patrick. So you in French, you cannot say et tu. You cannot use the subject form. You will have to use the object form. You have to say et toi. Et toi, Patrick. What did you tell your new housemates about yourself? Good. So what did you tell? Again, this what. Qu'est-ce que you tell? What did you tell? So we need the past tense. It's an action. So it's the verb raconter in the past perfect. Qu'est-ce que tu as raconté? And we will say to your new housemates, à tes nouveaux. That's new. New is one of the adjectives in front of the noun. Do you remember? I put up the list last week. So, à tes nouveaux colocataires. About yourself, de toi, about you. Are they French speaking? And I'm saying French speaking, which is not French, but French speaking. Are they, we make a question, est-ce qu'ils sont? Is it so that they are? And French speaking is francophone. You see, francophone, someone who speaks French. Français is somebody who is French from France. Yes. A Belgian man and a French woman. Oui. Un homme belge et une femme. You say femme, even though you write femme. Une femme française. I don't say français because it's a woman. So française. I put an extra E, so I pronounce the S. Femme française. Both are French speaking. Both, in French you will say the two. Les deux, watch out for the E, deux. Les deux sont francophones. I said this. To say is the verb dire. So I said, it's an action. So I have said. J'ai dit, and this is ceci. My name is Patrick. Yes, you can say my name is, mon nom est. But what you usually say is I'm called, je m'appelle. Quite sure you heard it, Patrick. Je m'appelle Patrick. I'm American. I am is je suis américain and not américaine. That's when it's a woman. Cathy, she will say je suis américaine. But you're a man, you say je suis américain. And I'm 28 years old. And that's funny, in French you will say I have 28 years. Et j'ai 28 ans. I have 28 years. It's a bit funny. That's how you say it. I'm a doctor in physics, but I'm working with technology. I think in French, we'd rather say I have a doctorate in physics. J'ai un doctorat en physique. Physique. Yes. But I'm working with technology. Mais, what am I doing? Mais je travaille. You remember, work was travail and not to travel. Travail is not to travel. Je travaille avec la technologie. I love animals, don't you? So I love, j'adore les animaux. Animaux cannot be alone. It needs a little word, an article, les. J'adore les animaux. Back home, I have a dog and a cat. So this is the verb avoir. Back home, à la maison, we have. You can say nous avons, but remember you can also use on. On is very often used in spoken language. So let's take that. On a a dog, un chien, et un chat. If you had used nous, then it would have been nous avons, we have. My mom studied 1 year in Belgium with Miss A. Yeah. Good old days. So my mom, I think in French we would say my mother, ma mère. It will be ma, because she's a woman. If it's a man, it's mon. Ma mère studied. It's an action in the past. So, a étudié. She has studied 1 year, 1 an, in Belgium, en Belgique. You will see that for the cities, you will say à New York, à Bruxelles. For the countries, you will have en or au. I don't explain the difference for the moment. It's a difference between feminine and masculine, but forget about it for the moment. With Miss E, avec Miss A. She studied psychology. It's again an action. Elle a étudié la psychologie. You need la. You cannot just say psychologie. And pronounce psychologie. You pronounce the P and the S. I love history. J'adore l'histoire. You link the L to the histoire because the H doesn't count, so you link the L to the E. L'histoire. J'adore l'histoire. In May, my mom and I came to Europe. En mai, in May, ma mère et moi. So in French, you will say my mother and me, and not and I. My mother and me, we came. So you can say on est venu, or you can say nous sommes venus to Europe, en Europe. En again, en Europe for Europe. And we visited several historical cities with Miss A. Yes, we did. Yes. Okay. Et, let's end. We visited, again, an action. Let's now use nous. Nous avons visité several, plusieurs cities, villes, historique. The adjective comes after the noun. With, avec Miss A. Okay. Congratulations, Patrick. You already know a lot. Congratulations. Félicitations, Patrick. You already know a lot. Tu sais, you know. Déjà, I know you know the word déjà in the déjà vu. Hein? As you say déjà vu in English, but it's déjà vu. So, tu sais déjà. A lot is beaucoup. Don't say the P. It will do for today because we have to do some grammar. It will do. We don't say it that way. We will say it's sufficient. C'est suffisant for aujourd'hui, today, because, parce que, that's because, parce que, we have to, and the verb to have to is not the verb to have, it's to have to, it's to must. I take now the on, parce qu'on doit, that's the verb devoir, faire un peu, a little bit of grammaire. C'est suffisant pour aujourd'hui parce qu'on doit faire un peu de grammaire, a little bit of grammar. Good. So this dialogue I will read in the next video, Patrick, but just a few words. It has been long already, so I will not take too much time. But I explained already how to use the two past tenses. So the actions are the past perfect, and if it's not an action, it's or a description and not an action, it's normally the simple past. So the difference with English is that in English, when you explain an action, you use the simple past. Okay, more about that next time. How do you make them? It will be really short today. So you will take the or let me put it on the next page. How will you make it? You will make the simple past. You will take what happened here. You will take the nous of the present tense. Let's take nous devons. We have to. Nous devons. You see, this is we must. Nous devons. You take away the on. So you only keep the dev, you see, and that's how you make the imparfait. So you take the dev, je dev, and now you will put on the endings. Je devais, tu devais. So I had to, you had to, he had to, she had to. Nous devions. Not good. Nous devions. Vous deviez, il devait. Let me just take the time to write it. And watch out, they had to, il devait. It's a lot of vowels. But you pronounce devait. Okay, you don't have to know all that. Just maybe you will be able to recognize them. Then we have the past perfect. And like in English, well, in English, you will say, for example, I have eaten. Okay. In French, that will become j'ai mangé. J'ai is I have. Eaten, mangé has this little accent. Now, the funny thing in French is that we have two auxiliaries. In English, you only have the verb to have as an auxiliary to make the past perfect. But in French, you have to have and to be. Now, most of the verbs have the verb to have. So, j'ai mangé. But 14 verbs will make the past avec to be, with to be. And we have already had some in our text. So let me now use the verb to come. So if now you would want to say, I have come in English, you will say, je suis venu. Okay, so sometimes you have être here, the verb être. Okay, I will do another video later because we have worked already a long time today about those past tenses. They are not so difficult if you know the present tense. More about that later. I continue my coffee. Of course, thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Kathy. And thank you, all the other people who watched this podcast. We are now over 30 people. I hope it will continue like that. See you soon. See you next week.